years ago. We move on to the poultry industry of Malaysia. Some brief data: 18 breeding companies and 3 grandparent farms. Primarily, it is a cob breed, more than 70%. We have Ross, we have Arbor Acres, we have Hubbard, but they are small in number. Our production is more than 500 million DO chicks per annum. Last estimate is probably 510, plus or minus. Production, more than 75% comes from the integrators, and the other 25% or less comes from the independent producers. Most breeder farms are owned by integrators, and the prices of these DO chicks, I did check with some of the neighboring countries. I think we are fairly competitive, and it is very volatile, and they are determined almost on a weekly basis by the Producers Association. Broilers, we have more than 10 integrators who control 60–70% of the total production. There are some small and medium independent producers, less than 30%, but some of them are also integrating themselves. 480 million broilers a year, fairly sizable numbers. The broiler facilities are not modern. Just now, prior speakers talk about corporate farming and contract farming. I think because of the infrastructure, I believe more of the corporates will go into broiler farming because a lot of these contract farms are very old, facilities are very old, and they are very traditional. Per capita consumption is very high, about 34 kilos per capita, and for broilers, we are more than 100% self-sufficient. Market structure, 55% wet market, live broilers, 45% processed and dressed bird, and more than 20 processing plants approved by the vet department, which is the government authorities. But it's interesting to note that over the last 6 months, 1 year, there are more and more, I wouldn't say small, medium-sized processing plants coming up across the country. The way the broilers are being marketed or chicken are being marketed is changing rapidly, partly because of the emergence of the hypermarkets and also the development of the probably a more established cold chain system. So you will see that the processed chicken or dressed bird market will continue to go up. Exports, we are dependent on Singapore for most of our exports. A lot of live chicken still goes to Singapore, or Singapore is dependent on Malaysia for live chicken. There are some dressed chicken going to Singapore and value-added products. Some goes to Brunei, and some further processed products goes to some of the neighboring countries. So we always consider Singapore as part of, when it comes to production and exports, Singapore is our important market, and we hope it will continue to be that way. Malaysian government do allow the imports of chicken. I think there will be questions about AFTA. We estimated about 30 to 40,000 tons, metric tons of poultry or poultry products are imported into the country. What products are imported? They range from mechanical deboned meat for further processing to the leg quarters to SBL, SBB, meat trims and all that. This mainly goes into the further processed market. There are some whole birds that come into the market from time to time. What happens is that the Malaysian government do issue permits from time to time to moderate the poultry prices in Malaysia. And this has been going on. This importation of poultry products into the Malaysian market has been happening for many years. The layer industry is a very highly developed, highly integrated. There are about 6 companies, public listed companies producing 1 million eggs or more. They are highly modern, very modern and efficient, and the daily production is about 20 million eggs per day. The breeds are high sex, Lohman, and per capita consumption is 230 eggs per capita, which is high. Layers, again, the layers industry is, Malaysia have more than, totally self-sufficient. And Singapore, again, is our important market. Market structure, whole eggs for local market. There are a few liquid egg plants, mainly for industrial and food service use. Exports, whole and liquid eggs to Singapore and other Asian countries. Ducks, it's a small livestock sector. After the bird flu, I think the market shrink. They lost the Singapore market, most of the Singapore market. Production is 26 million ducks per year. Production eggs, duck eggs, 73 million, more than 100% self-sufficient, and there are some limited export market as well. Swine. Okay, for the pig industry, after the we have a very devastating disease, the Nipah virus in the 90s that almost wiped out the whole pig industry, and also we lost the Singapore market. Currently, there are 165,000 sows, producing of 2.7 million porkers per year. Per capita consumption is 18 million. Being a Muslim country, I think that growth in that sector will be fairly restrictive. Singapore banned imports due to Nipah virus and still stands today. Production for domestic consumption, so growth is limited. This is an estimated production cost, 2006 versus 2009. 2009 will be probably the first 6 months, 7, 8 months of this year. Primarily, the cost has increased by 30%. And just now, Gordon also showed about 30% increase, so figures are quite in tandem. These production costs will be very dependent on commodity prices and also on other costs like energy costs and so on and so forth. Livestock industry challenges, spiraling production costs, both feed commodities as well as energy costs. Volatile prices due to supply demand. It's a very thin line between profit and loss. Because Malaysia have the potential to anytime produce more than required. Supply can exceed demand at any time. Limited export potential. There's some presentation about the halal hub, but currently exports are limited mainly to Singapore and a little bit to other countries. Trade barriers. It's difficult to export chicken. Meeting quality standards and competitiveness, Malaysia is by no means the most competitive when it comes to producing chicken. And because of the infrastructure and all that, it is not easy to meet some of the international quality standards. Government intervention to curb inflation. In Malaysia, we have a system whereby previously we have a ceiling price, which is very difficult for the industry. The government will slap a ceiling price of chicken, primarily chicken. So they have abolished that, and to protect the consumers, the government will allow the imports from time to time to moderate the price of chicken in Malaysia. So I suppose we have the mini AFTA before, that we used to practice. So this is an agreement, a loose agreement between the producers and the government. And currently, I noticed that there are some imports or potential imports of whole chicken from Thailand going into Malaysia because of the coming festivals. Increased productivity, increasing investment, and investing in appropriate technology. I think this has to go on to be able to sustain that growth and livelihood of the farmers. Religious sensitivity.